Yeah, my name is Tyler Russo, and at Monroe Township Library, I'm their Emergent Technologies Library. What my job is to really look at what's considered cutting edge trends, the technology, anything from smartphones to the Studio M, and the job is to see how we can use these things to best reach our patrons. Whether it's downloadable music, we're looking at digital comics, or even something like a 3D printing here. Well, 3D printer is essentially the same as a 2D printer, except that it prints in that third dimension. And even when our machine here, when you look at it, it graphs this way, and the only thing that really is different is that it uses plastic, and then it just drops the platform lower and lower. So it's still drawing in a two-dimensional fashion, but just allowing it to layer as it goes on there. All right, so there are various plastics depending on which kind of printer you're using. ABS and PLA are the most common ones. This is PLA, which is a biodegradable style of plastic. As you can see, it's about 4 millimeters thick on that. What it does is that it runs in the back of the machine, okay, and it runs through the extruder at the top. So right now we're working with a white filament over here. It goes through the machine, and then there's an extruder down here, which is pretty much like a hot glue gun. So for us, it extrudes at 240 degrees centigrade. And then as it's pushed out there, it's melted, and as it hits the platform, there's a fan which cools it instantly. So the second that a print is done, it's actually capable of being picked right up and taken off the plate. What we're using is makerware, and that's what we have up here. Basically, this is meant to look like the platform that we're using here. Whatever I use on here, I can import any STL or OBJ style object down here. It doesn't matter what software you're using, the popular one, there's Blender, Rhino, AutoCAD, anything that exports one of those two files, we would be able to put on here and then print it out. But what Thingiverse is, it's open files for people to use. So depending on what you're looking for, you could put in chess piece, cat, dog, keychain. If somebody's created it, they can upload it to Thingiverse. Somebody else can take that, just download it. They could put it directly onto the Makerware platform, print it as is, or in some of the cases they can actually modify it and add on pieces to it as well. This is one called the Secret Heart Box. It's one that MakerBot makes for you already on that. Right. So the way it starts off is it's printed out like this. The doors don't open on it, but when you turn it, it opens the lock, and then it is able to open. So it has a locking hinge inside of it. You probably can't see within there. There is a hinge which is printed in there, and what's kind of cool about that is that rather than something like this with a moving piece having to be printed separately and then put together, it's printed all at once. So the hinge is printed inside of it while it's printing everything else. So it creates a stronger bond for the hinge that's on there. So yeah, the big implications that you have with that are simple things, certain types of tools, but obviously in the medical field, you're looking at the socket joints and things like that. It allows them to print within it so that you have a much better fit on the socket. This is very much a reality. They were talking about a kid who had kind of a problem with the stomas, and they used a 3D printer to basically create a breathing tube for this kid so that it specialized and was able to work around the tumors so that the kid survived, because they weren't able to operate on the tumors yet with that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So they did that, knee and hip replacements. They work with that where they scan the bone and then they create that piece and they lock it into the natural bone so that they just basically screw it in, Rather so, what it makes is a less invasive operation for those types of procedures. What's amazing is the technology has been around for, easily 30 years. Essentially, the one that we use here, it's a 2D graph printer. I used this in high school 20 odd years ago. And then they just put a platform which just draws it down. So rather than using a marker, it's using this extrusion of the plastic on that. The earliest, I know we've had a person come in here talking, again, I want to say like 40 years ago is when they were really starting to look at this kind of thing. The reason it's so popular now is because the technology is so much cheaper. This one starts off at $2,000. I got some coming for $500 now. That'll be out by the Christmas season. I think Staples is getting in at about $400. I think by the end of this Christmas season, when you look at the Xbox One, it's $400 or $500, I think. So they're really competing against that kind of gaming model, on the Tech Geek side. When you look at the impulse buy of a tech fanatic, that's really actually in their impulse buy range, because they'll spend $4,000 on it, on a laptop. So this is something that's definitely feasible to find in there. Yeah, because definitely, like, we have, as we said before, we've had those prototypers coming in with their betas on that. But you also have, you do have people that are using stuff like sculptures, which is a little more of an artsy kind of thing, that are creating just very beautiful objects only for their own enjoyment. And to be able to kind of walk away with something they visualize up here and to have that piece created and walk away, it's definitely very gratifying. I kind of see it as actually both.
Cole Chrisbacher. I go to school at William Patterson University. I've always wanted to do sculpture, but there's really nowhere to go with it unless you want to make like ceramic pottery. And there's just something about like the instant gratification of making something that exists. And I never liked digital anything because it just felt far off and like I wasn't creating anything. But I was shown how to do a 3D print. Like my first one that came out, it was so weird to have something that you made on a screen come out in person. And I had no idea the impact that it was going to have in general. Even when I first started, they didn't have things that you could buy and afford in your own house. I remember the first time I saw something that was made, I saw a chain link that someone made, and they took it out of the printer and it worked. Like it was already connected. And it was so weird that they could do that. And it was just, the more I learned, the more there was to learn, and it was exciting, and I just followed it. I've done a lot of stuff on the CNC machine. It's this big machine that it has a drill bit, and you program in a path that it'll follow. And it goes back and forth, and it can either be out of styrofoam, wood, metal, depending on the machine. The one at school we do primarily styrofoam. So you make this path for it and it carves it out. It just goes over it and down, and it goes in layers, and over time, all of a sudden, out of this big block of styrofoam, you have your piece. And it's, I don't want to say easy, because learning how to use the machine, it's finicky, and my professor is the one who built the one that we have in the studio, so there's no instruction manual. If it breaks, we don't know how to fix it. But you, over probably the course of a semester, can go from having no idea how to even open the program up to being able to make something and have it printed. With the CNC, you can get big pieces in a relatively short amount of time, but you can't do, you can do flip milling, so you can kind of get a two-sided object, but for the most part, it's better for like a relief, which is just like one dimension pops out. That has a lot of more hands-on aspects to it. You can build part of it on a CNC and then bring it into plaster, or use it to base off of your ceramic. Like, that can be used as more of a stepping stone to another project. Whereas the rapid prototypes come out pretty much perfect. All you have to, if you program them right, but all you have to do is take them out of the machine, file down where the supports were built, and it's done. And it's like, you can get these incredible amounts of detail, and you can really get it to exactly where you want it to go. It's like anything that starts off as a new technology. Like, computers used to just be for people who knew how to use them, and they took up a whole room. And now, like, you have laptops everywhere. I know a 5-year-old that knows how to use one. So it's getting to the point where it's affordable enough that people can use it for things that aren't totally necessary.